The auditorium fell silent. The student stood proudly beside his science fair project, while the teacher frowned. "Who helped you build this?" she asked. The boy hesitated. Then a voice echoed from the back of the gym. "I did." Every head turned. The janitor stood there, mop in hand, and everything changed. The gym smelled like sweat, metal folding chairs, and fresh paint. Posters lined the walls. Volcanoes erupting, solar systems made from styrofoam, cardboard circuits taped to plywood. In the far left corner, a quiet eighth-grade boy stood behind a folding table. His name was Caleb, and his project didn't buzz, light up, or make fake smoke. It looked simple, just a box with gears and sensors. Teachers walked by and nodded politely, barely stopping. Students laughed behind their hands. One even said, "He probably copied it off YouTube." What they didn't know was this: Caleb had built it himself. Well, not entirely by himself. Every afternoon for the past 3 weeks, Caleb had stayed after school. Not in the robotics lab, not in the gifted student program. They'd rejected him twice. He worked behind the boiler room, in a corner that smelled like bleach and floor wax, with the janitor. His name was Mr. Hill. Nobody knew much about him. He was quiet, always early, always last to leave. He'd offered to help after seeing Caleb in the hallway, struggling to carry a motor and a stack of blueprints. That day, instead of walking past him like everyone else, he stopped. "Need a hand?" he asked. Caleb didn't say no. What started as one afternoon became 2, then 3, then every day. Caleb showed him the sketches, a robotic hand that could respond to sound. He wanted it to be able to wave when someone said hello, not because it was impressive, but because his little sister was deaf and couldn't speak clearly. No one else got it. But Mr. Hill did. He nodded once. "We can build that." And they did. They scavenged parts from junk drawers, reused wires from broken speakers, printed joints using an ancient 3D printer no one knew still worked. They soldered, tested, failed, retried. Each night, Caleb went home with a little more progress and a little more pride. Now at the science fair, none of that mattered. People weren't impressed, not yet, until Caleb pressed a button and said, "Hello." The robotic hand rose smoothly and waved. The judges paused. One leaned closer. Another took out a pen and started writing notes. It didn't look flashy, but it worked perfectly. And that's when the teacher walked up. A teacher who had once told Caleb to pick something more realistic. She looked at the project, then at him. "Who helped you build this?" And Caleb froze. Because if he said the janitor, they might laugh. But if he lied, he'd never forgive himself. Before he could speak, a voice answered from the shadows. "I did." The gym went dead silent. All eyes turned toward the voice. Mr. Hill stood at the back of the auditorium, holding a mop handle like a cane. His uniform shirt was wrinkled, a stain on one sleeve. His ID badge crooked. But his posture, steady. He didn't look embarrassed. He didn't look small. He just stood there. The teacher blinked. "Excuse me?" Mr. Hill stepped forward slowly. "I helped him, every day after school." A ripple moved through the room. Some students whispered. Others laughed quietly. The principal frowned. "Mr. Hill, why would—" "I know how to build machines," he said. "It's what I used to do." Now the judges were listening. One raised an eyebrow. "You built this?" Mr. Hill shook his head. "He built it. I guided him. That's what mentors do." Caleb looked down at the table. His hands were shaking. He'd never been defended in public before. The teacher scoffed. "You're a janitor." And that's when Mr. Hill said something that made the room stop breathing. "I used to be an engineer at NASA." Silence. Everyone froze. Even the judge holding the clipboard lowered his pen. The teacher laughed nervously. "You're kidding." Mr. Hill didn't flinch. "I helped design mechanical guidance systems for Mars rovers. My name is on a panel still orbiting the planet right now." He pulled something from his back pocket, a folded photo. Caleb had never seen it before. It showed a much younger Mr. Hill wearing a white lab coat standing next to a spacecraft model. The Curiosity rover. Same eyes, same jaw, same quiet posture. The judges examined the photo. The principal leaned closer, and suddenly the entire room shifted. What had once been a story about a weird kid and a janitor was now something else entirely. Caleb looked up at Mr. Hill. "You never told me that." Mr. Hill shrugged. "Didn't seem important. We were building your project." A judge stepped forward. "This design is brilliant. The torque balance, the responsiveness. This isn't middle school work." "It is now," Mr. Hill said. The judge turned to Caleb. "You're in the wrong science program." Caleb said nothing, but he smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, someone believed him. The rest of the science fair didn't go how anyone expected. After Mr. Hill's reveal, the energy in the room shifted. Some kids rushed over to look at Caleb's project again. Teachers huddled near the judges. Parents whispered from the bleachers. It wasn't just about the robotic hand anymore. It was about who built it and who dared to believe in the kid who never got picked. But not everyone was impressed. Later that afternoon in the teacher's lounge, a small storm was brewing. Ms. Carter and the same teacher who questioned Caleb stood near the coffee machine, arms crossed. "He cheated," she said flatly. "It's obvious." Another teacher looked up. "You saw the photo. The man worked at NASA." "Sure," she snapped. 30 years ago. That doesn't mean it was Caleb's work." A third chimed in. "The boy's bright. I've seen him sketching robotics in his notebook all semester." "But he's not enrolled in any of the advanced programs," Ms. Carter fired back. "And you think it's normal for a janitor to mentor a student in secret?" The room went quiet, because she'd said the quiet part out loud. Meanwhile, Caleb sat outside on the school steps, still in his science fair t-shirt, still holding his notes. He didn't feel like a winner. He felt like a target. Mr. Hill joined him quietly. "You okay?" Caleb shrugged. "They think I cheated." Mr. Hill nodded slowly. "I know. You shouldn't have said anything." "I had to," Mr. Hill replied. "They asked, and I'm not ashamed." Caleb stared out at the parking lot. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving NASA?" Mr. Hill smiled softly. "Not a day." Caleb looked up, surprised. Mr. Hill continued. "I chose family over machines. My daughter got sick. I couldn't be in Houston and take care of her." He paused. "After she passed, I just wanted quiet." Caleb swallowed hard. That was the first time Mr. Hill had ever mentioned his family. "You're still an engineer," Caleb said quietly. "I'm whatever the world needs me to be," Mr. Hill replied. "This week, it needed me to be your partner." Back in the gym, the judges made their decision. Caleb was awarded first place, but not just for his project, for innovation, design, and social impact. They even invited him to speak at the regional expo next month. As his name was announced, he stood, hesitated, and then said into the mic, "This award isn't mine alone. It belongs to someone who helped me believe I could build something. Someone who most people don't even see. His name is Mr. Hill. He's not just the janitor. He's my mentor." And the whole gym stood in silence, because that moment wasn't about winning. It was about rewriting the story. The video of Caleb's speech went viral by the weekend. Someone had filmed it from the bleachers. The audio wasn't perfect, but the message was, "He's not just the janitor, he's my mentor." It was reposted, shared, tweeted, and stitched across every platform, and it found its way to a group of engineers at Jet Propulsion Labs in California. One of them recognized the face immediately. Walter Hill, Aerospace Mechanical Systems lead, retired early, disappeared from the industry. Rumors said he'd had a breakdown. Others said he'd moved to Montana. No one knew he was quietly mopping floors in a middle school. 2 days later, the school got a call. A woman from NASA's outreach division wanted to verify something. The front office transferred the call to the principal, who answered with hesitation. "Yeah, but Mr. Hill works here. He's been on staff for 6 years." There was a pause, and then, "We'd like to speak with him, privately." That afternoon, Mr. Hill was called to the main office. When he walked in, there was no mop, No bleach bucket, no rolled up sleeves. Just a man in a button-down shirt and quiet eyes. The principal gestured to the office phone on speaker. "They want to talk to you." Mr. Hill picked it up. A voice on the other end spoke with reverence. "Mr. Hill, we've seen what you've done. The project, the mentorship, and the humility." He didn't respond. "We would be honored," the voice continued, "if you'd consider speaking at our alumni symposium next month and rejoining our mentorship program." Mr. Hill smiled softly. "I thought I was forgotten." "Not anymore," the voice said. Word spread quickly. The school sent out a press release. Parents started asking for Mr. Hill to mentor their kids. Reporters reached out for interviews. But Mr. Hill, he stayed the same. Still arrived early, still swept the same hallways, still carried a screwdriver in his pocket just in case a locker jammed. Only now, people nodded when they saw him, said thank you, held doors open. It wasn't fame, it was respect. The thing he'd never asked for, but finally received. One morning, about a week later, Caleb waited outside the school entrance. He had something in his hand, a small plaque, homemade, crafted from scrap wood and metal. When Mr. Hill walked up, Caleb handed it to him. The engraving read, "Mentor of Momentum, for the one who taught me how to build and believe." Mr. Hill turned it over in his hands, ran a finger across the edge. He didn't say much, just nodded once and smiled. Then he held open the school door for Caleb, and they walked in together. Not student and janitor, but partners. The Regional Science Expo was held in the city's largest community hall. Hundreds of projects, dozens of schools, TV crews, local news anchors, even a representative from the mayor's office. Caleb stood beside his booth, dressed in a crisp shirt and borrowed tie. But he wasn't nervous, because he wasn't standing alone. Next to him was Mr. Hill, still in uniform, not because he had to be, but because it was part of the story now. His story, their story, together. As attendees stopped by to ask about the robotic hand, Caleb explained the mechanics, the sensors, the coding logic. Then he'd step back and gesture toward Mr. Hill. "He taught me how to make it move." Some people just nodded politely. Others paused, their eyes catching on his name tag. "Wait, the Mr. Hill?" And suddenly they leaned in closer, asked better questions, listened harder, because it wasn't just a project anymore, it was a partnership. Halfway through the expo, the MC took the stage. It was time for the keynote. "Today," she said, "we don't just honor students. We honor the mentors who guide them, the educators who believe in them, and the people who show up, even when no one's watching." She smiled. "Please welcome our special guest, a man who reminded the world that brilliance doesn't always wear a lab coat, and that sometimes the smartest person in the room is holding a mop." Caleb turned to Mr. Hill, eyes wide. "You didn't tell me you were speaking." Mr. Hill chuckled. "Didn't want to make a big deal." He stepped onto the stage, and for the first time in years, he was seen. He didn't say much, just told a story about a boy who believed in a dream, about two people in a forgotten corner of a school, about building something out of scraps and trust. He didn't talk about his past, didn't drop titles, didn't show off resumes. He ended with one line: "You don't need to be known to make an impact. You just need to care when no one else does." And the crowd stood, not in polite applause, in genuine human recognition. That night, the school replaced the old metal sign outside the science lab. It now read, "The Walter Hill Innovation Center, inspired by mentorship, powered by belief." Caleb touched the plaque with his fingertips. A janitor's hands built this, but a mentor's heart made it real. And that's the part no one could replicate. He never asked for credit, never asked for applause, but he gave his time, his knowledge, and his belief. And in a world that often looks past the ones in the background, Mr. Hill reminded us all that the quietest voices sometimes carry the deepest wisdom. This is Unseen Heroes. Subscribe for more stories of those who show up when no one else does. Share this if you've ever had someone who believed in you. before the world did.